Hello, and thank you for joining us on France 24. It's time for us to cast our collective eye on Africa. First up, the headlines. As the US-Israeli war on Iran persists, its economic fallout continues to shake the globe, including the African continent. The conflict has led to rising fuel prices, which are affecting many countries, including South Africa, the continent's leading economic power. Zimbabwe opposition parties remain mobilized against a proposed constitutional amendment aimed at extending the president's term. This amid renewed crackdowns and incoming reports of physical violence against opposition members. And Ivorian farmers are in turmoil 2 months following the end of the VAT exemption on agricultural products and animal feed. This new tax now threatens farm profitability, jobs across the sector, and the supply of locally produced chicken. Welcome to the program. As tensions continue in the Middle East, the economic fallout is being felt far beyond the region. In South Africa, officials are warning that the ongoing conflict between the United States, Israel, and Iran could come at a steep cost. Our South African correspondent spoke to political analyst Sanusha Naidu about the economic effects the war has been having on South Africa and the rest of the African continent.
South Africa could see a multi-million-dollar loss in its exports due to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. The Trade Minister Park Stow told Parliament this week that should the conflict continue for 3 months, the economic consequences could amount to $820 million. Locally, South Africans are already anticipating a massive fuel increase next month. This is despite the fact that South Africa does not import its oil directly from Iran. Analyst Sanusha Naidu explains.
We kind of moved away from the Middle East and we're buying a little bit of our refining oil from Nigeria, but where we get caught in the crosshairs of this conflict and anything with regard to oil is because we are an oil dependency country. We're not an oil producing country, and I think that if you look at who our major trade partners are, it's even in the context of the Middle East, it's not. I don't think Iran is the first major partner there.
The ports in South Africa play a key role in supplying goods across the African continent. Should the conflict continue in the Middle East, it could have a knock-on effect on the supply chains.
The other thing that will affect us, because we are also a port, and a lot of the goods that come to the South African port get re-exported into Africa. And that's going to have another impact on us. And it's going to create that kind of knock-on effect as well, because depending on the delay.
Meanwhile, Iran's ambassador to South Africa has called BRICS nations to show their opposition towards Israel and the US for their attack on Iran. However, the South African government maintains their neutrality and has also remained calling for peaceful resolutions in times of conflict.
Despite facing intensified crackdowns, opposition groups in Zimbabwe remain mobilized against a proposed constitutional amendment aimed at extending the president's term. Among these opponents, Professor Lovemore Madhaku, leader of the National Constitutional Assembly, who was beaten in early March during an attack he attributes to security agents backed by the police. Explanations by Laurent Berstecher.
His back covered in bruises, Lovemore Maduku struggled to focus without his glasses, broken by his assailants. Yet despite his injuries and the lingering trauma, the law professor's eyes still shone with resolve and determination.
We will not be the first ones to be overpowered by a superior force of the state. The fundamental nature of the change that they're introducing, you are lengthening a term of the president. Not only that, you are also saying that the president from now on will not be elected by the people.
Maduku says he was brutally beaten by a group of 50 masked men earlier this month in full view of police and security forces. He was heading to an opposition meeting to debate a highly contested constitutional amendment brought forth by the government of Emerson Mnangagwa. The controversial change seeks to extend the country's presidential term from 5 to 7 years and to replace the existing electoral system, swapping direct elections with a vote by lawmakers. Critics are denouncing a blatant attack on Zimbabwe's democracy that would also tighten the ruling party's grip on power.
They don't care about the future of the country, they don't care about the respect of the constitution, but what they care about is the economic benefits that comes with the elongation of President Mnangagwa's term.
Zimbabwe's security forces have rejected any implication in the assault on Professor Maduku, but the claim raised a few eyebrows among the opposition, which has long denounced the government's systematic use of violence and intimidation to silence dissenting voices.
Ghana is reviewing 3 local bids to take over the Damang gold mine, one of its richest sites currently run by Goldfields. The government says it won't renew the South African firm's lease as part of efforts to shift control to major mines to local ownership. Our Ghana correspondent, Justice Baidu, tells us more.
The Ghanaian government says it is currently reviewing bids from 3 companies that have expressed interest in running the Damang mine in Western Ghana. BCM International, Vortex, and engineers and planners who are already contractors in this particular concession are the ones that have expressed the interest in taking them up in the long term. This is one of the country's richest concessions and would require up to $1 billion to run. Old mining leases that Ghana held with South African multinational miner Goldfields expired in 2025. The government turned down requests from Goldfields to have them renewed and instead gave them a 1-year notice to wrap up and leave. Ghana has recently increased royalty taxes that it takes from mining firms from a fixed 5% rate to up to 12% depending on the price of gold on the world market. With Ghana recently falling 7 places on the global mining attractiveness index, investment index, concerns are high that even though these nationalization attempts may sound popular in the country and may also impact the country in the short term, its negative impact may linger for the economy in the longer term.
Tunisian anti-racism activist Sadia Mosba has been sentenced to 8 years in prison on charges of money laundering and illicit enrichment. The 66-year-old, who leads the anti-racism group Mnemeti, was arrested in May 2024 and has been behind bars for nearly 2 years on financial misconduct charges. The activist has long been a prominent advocate of sub-Saharan migrants' rights in Tunisia, stepping up efforts after a 2023 speech by President Kais Saied, in which he denounced hordes of illegal migrants as a demographic threat. Just as Ivory Coast was nearing self-sufficiency in chicken production, local farmers have been thrown into turmoil. The reason? The end of the VAT exemption on agricultural products and animal feed that came into effect 2 months ago. This new tax, initially set at 18% before being reduced to 9%, now threatens farm profitability, jobs across the sector, and the supply of locally produced chicken. Here's a report by our correspondents in Abidjan, Makamara, Damien Kofi, and Julia Guggenheim.
Chicken is a staple of Ivorian cuisine. At this market, around 3,000 chickens are sold daily. To raise revenue, the government introduced new VAT laws, increasing the cost of local poultry, a heavy blow to restaurant owners, with some now turning to imported chicken.
Chicken used to cost 4,000 and now it has gone up to 5,000 francs per chicken. We have fewer customers. Frozen chickens are not good. They have no taste, no matter the seasoning. The chicken lover will know it is frozen chicken.
Faced with mounting pressure, the National Poultry Producers Association pushed back and succeeded in getting the tax cut in half.
The state heard some of our cries, and instead of 18%, the tax went down to 9%. But it is still high for us. Many have reduced their flocks. We are forced to produce and sell at low prices so that consumers can continue to access animal protein and we can compete with imported chicken.
The poultry sector employed around 320,000 people nationwide last year. For producers like David, the VAT is already having direct consequences.
I had 8 employees to handle 16,000 chickens. But today, because of the tax, I only produce 4,000 birds, and I was forced to reduce staff. Now I have 3 poultry workers.
When the tax was suspended in 2007, the sector expanded rapidly, growing from 20,000 to 125,000 tons of locally produced chicken. The new tax law raises fresh concerns across the industry.
And before we end the program, we of the Eye on Africa team here in Paris would like to wish a happy Eid Mubarak to any and all who celebrate it. Across the African continent, celebrations have already begun, as you can see on these images, coming to us from Somalia, Algeria, and Nigeria. One of the most important events on the Muslim calendar, this holiday marks the end of the month of Ramadan. We leave you on these joyful images, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more news here on France 24.